Karoline Leavitt recently made waves on Stephen Colbert's late-night show, and her fiery exchange with the host has left people talking. You won't believe the stunning way she destroyed Stephen Colbert and his reaction? Well, it's priceless. Let's break it down. Karoline Leavitt, a former press secretary and political commentator, has made a name for herself in the world of conservative politics. But what many might not know is just how sharp and quick-witted she is, especially when facing off against someone like Stephen Colbert, who is known for his comedic brilliance and liberal leanings. The showdown between the two has been the subject of much discussion in political circles and beyond. It all began with Colbert's typical setup. He loves poking fun at right-wing figures, using humor and sarcasm to throw them off their game. But this time, Karoline wasn't intimidated. She took everything Colbert threw at her and responded with a level of precision that stunned even the most seasoned political commentators. The conversation started innocuously enough. Colbert, in his usual jovial tone, asked Karoline about the state of American politics and the rising influence of conservative voices. He was expecting a standard response, perhaps a little humor about the state of the Republican Party, but Karoline wasn't there to play along with his game. Instead, she delivered a pointed critique of the current political landscape, slamming both sides of the aisle for their failure to address issues that really matter to everyday Americans. Stephen, Karoline began with a calm but assertive tone. You and your colleagues on the left seem more interested in playing identity politics and bashing conservatives than actually working toward meaningful change. The real issues like inflation, economic hardship, and border security are being ignored. And the longer you keep up with this narrative, the more out of touch you become with what's actually affecting the American people. At first, Colbert seemed caught off guard. His face momentarily froze, and the audience, who was used to Colbert's easygoing mockery, grew silent. It was clear that Karoline wasn't there to be intimidated, and her words were cutting deep. But Colbert, ever the professional, quickly recovered with a sarcastic quip. "Ah, yes, the old both sides argument," he said, rolling his eyes. "Let's just blame everyone for everything and call it a day. Isn't that what we all love to do?" But Karoline wasn't backing down. She looked him dead in the eye, her confidence only growing with every word. "No, Stephen, that's not it," she said. "What I'm saying is that both parties are failing us, but the left especially has shown that they're more concerned with their ideological purity and virtue signaling than with the everyday struggles that Americans face. You see, while you make jokes about conservatives, we're the ones actually dealing with the fallout of policies that hurt working families." Colbert's reaction was nothing short of priceless. For a brief moment, the jovial demeanor he usually exudes seemed to slip. His smile faltered, and he seemed at a loss for words, fumbling for his next line. The audience, usually so accustomed to Colbert's clever comebacks, could sense that he was rattled. His playful sarcasm didn't land as it usually did, and the tension in the air became palpable. But Colbert, ever the entertainer, managed to regain his composure. He tried to shift gears, attempting to steer the conversation back into safer territory by asking about Karoline's political career. Okay, he said with a chuckle. "I get it. But you've had your fair share of time in politics. What do you think the future holds for people like you?" Karoline, undeterred, responded with confidence and clarity. "Well, Stephen, I think we need more voices that are willing to challenge the status quo, to stand up for what's right, and to advocate for real change. And it's not going to come from the same people who have been running the show for decades." Her response was calm but powerful, and it further solidified her position as someone who wasn't afraid to take on the establishment, regardless of the platform or audience. At this point, it was clear that she had successfully flipped the Yao script on Colbert. He had entered the interview expecting to deliver his usual biting humor at the expense of a conservative figure, but instead, he found himself on the receiving end of a well-crafted critique. Colbert, realizing he wasn't getting the reaction he was hoping for, tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but even that felt forced. He made a half-hearted attempt at self-deprecation, but the charm was gone. The audience, sensing the shift in dynamics, wasn't as quick to laugh at his expense. Instead, they seemed to admire Karoline's calm demeanor and pointed commentary. Now, this isn't to say that Colbert was entirely unprepared. He's a seasoned host with years of experience, dealing with tough interviews, and he certainly tried to steer the conversation back to familiar ground. But there was a moment in the exchange where his usual playful arrogance seemed to falter, and that moment is what has made this interview unforgettable. Karoline Leavitt didn't just hold her ground, she excelled in what could have been a difficult and uncomfortable interview. She handled herself with grace under pressure, and her response to Colbert's jabs revealed a level of political insight and communication skill that many didn't expect from her. By the end of the segment, the mood in the studio had shifted from one of lighthearted banter to one of genuine respect for her ability to stand up for her beliefs. So why has this exchange become such a big deal? It's simple. Karoline Leavitt managed to turn the tables on Stephen Colbert. Instead of allowing herself to be the punchline of his jokes, she became the one making the sharp observations. Colbert, usually the one in control of the narrative, found himself out of his element, and his reaction, the brief moment of uncertainty, speaks volumes. In the world of late-night TV, it's not often that a guest leaves a host speechless, but Karoline Leavitt did just that. And her performance has sparked a conversation about the need for more political figures to engage with the media in a way that doesn't rely on sound bites or canned responses. Karoline's ability to hold her own against one of TV's most skilled hosts has earned her respect and attention in a way that few could have predicted. As for Stephen Colbert, well, his reaction, the momentary loss of composure, the awkward chuckles, and the forced attempts at humor only added to the drama of the interview. It was a rare glimpse of vulnerability from a host who is usually the one in control. And for viewers who tuned in, it was a moment that will be remembered for a long time. In the end, Karoline Leavitt proved that when you stand up for what you believe in and refuse to be silenced, you don't just win the argument, you win the respect of those watching. And in this case, even Stephen Colbert couldn't help but acknowledge her power. As the interview wrapped up, Colbert, ever the professional, attempted to end on a lighter note. But the energy in the studio had undeniably shifted. The playful back and forth that usually defined his late-night interviews was replaced by a quiet respect for Karoline's poised responses. The audience, perhaps not accustomed to seeing Colbert caught off guard in this way, seemed to appreciate her no-nonsense approach. There was a certain admiration in the air, even if it wasn't explicitly voiced. Before the show cut to a commercial, Colbert gave her a nod, acknowledging the unexpected turn of events. He seemed to accept that this wasn't going to be one of those typical segments where he gets the last laugh. Instead, the final impression left by Karoline was one of strength and conviction. "Well, I guess we'll leave it at that," Colbert said, his tone softening. "Karoline Leavitt, everyone. You've given us a lot to think about." And with that, the credits rolled, but the internet was just beginning to buzz with reactions. Social media exploded with clips of the exchange. People from both sides of the political spectrum had something to say, and the overwhelming consensus was that Karoline had, without a doubt, held her own. On Twitter, conservative commentators and political pundits lauded her for standing firm against one of the most well-known liberal hosts in late-night television. "Karoline Leavitt just schooled Stephen Colbert on his own show," one user wrote. "His reaction? Priceless." Other posts highlighted the moment as a perfect example of how a well-prepared and articulate conservative can hold their ground in an environment typically dominated by left-leaning voices. Meanwhile, some Colbert fans, while still fond of their host, admitted that they were a little taken aback by how the interview played out. "I always thought Colbert could handle anyone," one commenter remarked, "but today it was clear he got more than he bargained for. Karoline is a force to be reckoned with." Even some of Colbert's most ardent supporters had to acknowledge that Karoline's poise was impressive. For Karoline, this appearance solidified her as a rising star in the political commentary world. She had effectively turned what could have been a mockery into an opportunity to showcase her political acumen. It was a masterclass in maintaining composure under pressure, a rare feat when facing a comedian like Colbert, who is known for his sharp wit and quick comebacks. Karoline's ability to remain calm and articulate without resorting to shouting or emotional appeals, won her the respect of many who may have previously written her off as just another talking head in the political world. As the days went on, clips of the interview continued to circulate, and Karoline's profile grew. It wasn't just the conservative media that picked up on it. Mainstream outlets took notice too. Karoline's name was trending in political discussions, and pundits began to point out that she might be the kind of fresh voice needed in today's increasingly polarized political climate. Her ability to engage in thoughtful debates while remaining unflustered made her a compelling figure for a wider audience. In the weeks following the interview, she made a series of appearances on other platforms, further expanding her reach. She didn't shy away from the inevitable comparisons to Colbert either. On one show, when asked about her memorable appearance on The Late Show, Karoline chuckled and said, "I didn't expect to walk into Colbert's den and come out as the one holding all the cards, but sometimes that's how it goes." It was clear that she had learned from the experience and was using it to her advantage. Despite her rising popularity, Karoline remained humble about the whole ordeal. In interviews, she consistently emphasized that her goal was never to destroy anyone but to bring attention to important issues. "I'm not here to be the villain," she said in one post-interview discussion. "I'm here to make sure people are talking about the real issues that matter, not just political theater." However, it's safe to say that her appearance on Stephen Colbert's show had the exact effect she desired. It got people talking, not just about her, but about the deeper issues she was raising. In a media landscape where sound bites and quick comebacks often overshadow substantive debate, Karoline Leavitt was able to cut through the noise and remind everyone that political discourse is about more than just making jokes or scoring points. It's about having the courage to speak the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may make others feel. As the weeks went by, the impact of Karoline Leavitt's appearance on Stephen Colbert's show continued to reverberate throughout the media landscape. The segment wasn't just a viral moment. It became a symbol of a broader shift in how political debates were being conducted, especially on late-night television. While late-night hosts like Colbert have long been known for their biting humor, often skewering conservative figures, Karoline's performance showed that it was possible to engage in these spaces without losing composure or falling into the trap of mockery. Her rise in the political commentary sphere didn't stop with just one appearance. In fact, it propelled her into even more prominent discussions. Karoline began appearing on a variety of platforms, from conservative radio talk shows to podcasts, where her insights and perspectives were sought after. She was often asked to weigh in on the current state of politics, and her ability to articulate her views in a clear, no-nonsense manner earned her a loyal following. One of the key takeaways from her Colbert interview was that Karoline had set a new bar for how to handle media interactions. She proved that even in a setting where you are expected to be the punchline, you don't have to play along with the narrative the host or audience expects of you. Instead, you can turn the tables and leave a lasting impact. It wasn't about playing defense. It was about asserting your position, articulating your beliefs, and forcing others to reckon with them. The conversation about Karoline also began to shift. While initially, many had dismissed her as just another political figure looking for attention, the Colbert interview changed that perception. She was no longer seen as merely a spokesperson for a particular political agenda. Instead, she became a symbol of the type of discourse that people were yearning for: civil, thoughtful, and substantive. Karoline's appearance was a reminder that political debate doesn't have to be a shouting match. It can be an opportunity for genuine conversation, where both sides are heard and ideas are challenged respectfully. Even though her performance on Colbert's show was undeniably impressive, Karoline wasn't resting on her laurels. She continued to push the envelope in every interview and appearance she made. When she was asked about the challenges of being a conservative woman in the political arena, she didn't shy away from addressing the gender dynamics in politics. "People often try to put me into a box to define me by my political leanings or my gender," she said in one interview. "But the truth is, I'm not here to fit anyone's mold. I'm here to represent the views of a large portion of the American people who feel like their voices are being drowned out by the extremes on both sides." Her answer resonated with many, particularly with women who felt marginalized or ignored by mainstream political conversations. Karoline's message was one of empowerment and authenticity, that you don't have to conform to expectations, and you certainly don't have to let others define your role in politics. Her approach to tackling both issues of gender and politics, at the same time, earned her respect across a wide spectrum. While many conservative figures struggle to break away from stereotypes, Karoline's ability to maintain her individuality and stand firm in her beliefs, regardless of the audience or platform, made her a standout. Even Colbert himself couldn't deny her rise. In the weeks following the interview, he referenced her again on his show, though with a bit more reverence than usual. Well, folks, if I learned anything from that interview, it's that Karoline Leavitt is not someone you want to underestimate. Colbert joked, admitting that he had underestimated her in the moment. She may be on the right side of the political spectrum, but I have to say, she's got a sharp mind and a lot of conviction. Respect where it's due.